Missouri farm rose straight as a ham in November light. A big family learning the arithmetic of lean seasons. Thomas Horn Jr., Tom, born 1860 by most careful reckonings, and small at first. Then quick, he watched whether the way other boys watch parades. The household moved west as so. Many did, wagons, creeks to ford, arguments with ruts, Colorado for a while. Open country teaches confidence and caution in equal measure. Tom learned animals first. Horses especially, when to ask, when to insist, when to leave a creature alone and let it explain itself. He learned a rifle the way farm boys do when game is both food and curriculum. He was quiet long before anyone asked him to be. That quiet became a kind of tool. You can hear more when you are not auditioning for the room. He left young teen years stretched by miles, seeking wages, seeking the version of himself that looked right in his own head. By the mid-1870s, he was in Arizona territory where the ground holds heat in stories. Soldiers needed scouts who could ride long, fine water, translate what the country tries to tell you if you stand still. Tom could stand still. He could also move very far without making a speech about it. Apache country of Seabird, General Crook, and the long trail that ended under a hot sun. Tracks read like sentences, deals made, broken, remade. A name whispered everywhere, Geronimo. Arizona light is clear enough to be a judge. It shows edges kindly and exactly. Tom Horn worked under Chief of Scouts Alcibur, a man built of gravel and humor, and for commanders who needed guides. More than glory, he served as interpreter when words needed crossing English to Apache, Apache to English, carrying meanings carefully so they would arrive intact. He rode deep in canyon country where water hides under cottonwoods, and the echo of hooves makes decisions for you. He learned camps by smell, trails by the kind of certainty that does not brag because it is too busy being useful. The Geronimo campaigns twisted through years like a long arroyo skirmishes, parleys, promises with expiration dates. Tom was there in the outer ring many times, scouting ahead, bridging silence, helping columns find what they were looking for or avoid what they should not find. When surrender finally came, more than once that lasted, the desert exhaled. Men wrote reports, families counted who was back and who wasn't. Tom carried onward the knowledge. A scout earns and rarely spends in conversation. The land is older than plans. He drifted after the way men do when a war releases its workers. Stage lines, stock work. Pinkerton badge eventually pinned in Denver offices that smelled like ink and pipe smoke. The badge fit his habits. Observe first, ask brief questions. Let the next move belong to information rather than impatience. But detectives are paid to end. Stories and endings are seldom gentle. Cattle wars, wire fences, and a stock detective with a reputation that rode faster than he did. Johnson County in the papers, company men, sheep and cattle arguing in grass, Tom between. Wyoming wind writes opinions without ink. The 1890s there were noisy even in quiet places. Open range narrowed, fences stitched, big outfits wrote checks. Small ranchers tried to make arithmetic hold with fewer acres than their fathers needed. Wrestling was sometimes crime, sometimes accusation, sometimes the name rich men used for poor men's improvisations. Tom left the Pinkertons and took private contracts, stock detective, a job title. That changes meanings every time you shift your weight, ride, watch, warn. Recover cattle where you can. Make examples when your employer thinks talking isn't working. Reports from that era carry his. Name along edges of violence, men shot in lonely draws. Threats delivered in tones that did not invite negotiation. How many were Tom S. direct work and how many the work of a system that liked his reputation? Is a question historians keep open on their desks. Bedtime telling keeps the edges soft and the facts in view. He was effective, he was feared. Some called him necessary, some called him a murderer. Through it all he rode well and listened much. He enjoyed company when it was light and distance when it wasn't. He could be courteous in kitchens and cold on ridge lines. By 1901 he was around Iron Mountain country north of Cheyenne where cattle and sheep met like two weathers trying to share a sky. Boy lived there, Willie Nichols, son of a sheepman. A shot on a July day. A child dead. A community made of neighbors and grudges tried to decide which it was more. Rumors elected Tom's name early, proof lagged. Then a conversation in Cheyenne, Deputy U.S. Marshal Joe Leffers, Tom Horn. Whiskey, words, a confession contested, a trial that looked tidy from the balcony, and a verdict that still won't sit still. Courtroom air, expert witnesses, a clock that would not. Leffers invited Tom to talk. A job prospect, that was the bait. Tom came in confident, a man sure of his own competence, not always sure of other men's honesty. What passed between them remains a knot. Leffers said Tom admitted shooting the nickel boy at long range, bragged almost placing himself on a ridge with foggy precision. Tom would later deny the boasting, insist he had been trapped by conversation dressed as fellowship. Cheyenne's courthouse filled. Territory-turning state had learned how to put on a trial. Prosecutors offered the words Leffers said he heard. A rifle's capabilities measured against distance. Tracks and times that tried hard to agree. Defense offered another Tom, scout, interpreter. Professional whose employers had asked for hard things but whose nature was not murder of a child. Friends took the stand. So did men who disliked him. The air weighed more with each day. The jury returned what juries return when facts feel orderly from a certain angle. Guilty. Sentence set. Appeals attempted. The Cell Road received visitors. Kept his back straight for photographers who wanted one more picture of a man. The Century had decided to know. Some say he admitted in private what he would not on paper. Some say he held innocence until breath left. A telling allows for uncertainty because truth sometimes prefers it. A scaffold, a town's hush, and the ledger we carry forward soft-handed. A last morning, a debate that never adjourned, the next life in legend if not elsewhere. November light again, this time in Cheyenne. 1903. Tom Horn faced the state with the same composure he had used on desert trails. No speeches for the street, only quiet arrangements, letters, handshakes men remember because last things grow larger inside memory's frame. The mechanism did its job. The town exhaled unevenly, some relieved, some angry, some simply tired. Afterward, the story refused to sit down. Books argued. Ranch lore insisted on versions. Detective memoirs swapped adjectives. Historians kept a small lamp on the file through the decades. What do we keep at bedtime? A complicated man who did complicated work in an era that was getting less forgiving by the week. A scout whose listening helped end a war. A detective whose reputation could end other things too. A defendant whose trial felt neat in print and messy in hindsight. We keep caution as well, that private power wearing law's clothing is dangerous, that public outrage wearing certainty can be too, that a person can be many truths across a single life and the final truth may still resist being cornered. Tom's head goes back on its peg now. The room grows lighter. We step toward a different figure, not hired scout or a company man, but a woman who took a stagecoach almost as an afterthought and found herself in history as headline for one audacious afternoon. Pearl Harbor, Arizona, 1899, a gentler robber than most. A story told with too much costume by some and with too little kindness by others. We will meet her next in 5 soft parts, so your long video can ease listeners from range wars into a single dusty road. And a woman has steady voice asking people to breathe.